I gave my son $40,000 to help with down payment his dream home and spent my nights scrubbing his floors. But 2 days before my 71st birthday, he handed me a brochure for a nursing home and told me they needed the space. I left with nothing but my dignity until a chance meeting with a struggling girl in a library changed everything. My son thought he was discarding me, but he didn't realize he was sending me straight to the one man who could take everything away from him. Before I continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Agatha, and if you are here for the first time, please subscribe and follow me on this very interesting journey. Where are you listening from? Please comment below. Lost his dad when he was 9 years old. Two-bedroom apartment, east side of the city, double shifts at the hospital, night classes when I could manage them, and became a supply teacher. I was not looking for praise. That was just life, and I lived it. I watched that boy grow into a man. I watched him marry Joanne. I watched them move into a beautiful house in the suburbs, a house I helped them afford with the $40,000 my mother left me when she passed. I gave it freely, no paperwork, no conversation about repayment. That's not how I was raised to love. When Joanne, his wife, suggested I move in after my hip surgery 3 years ago, I hesitated. I have always been a woman who carries her own weight. I did not want to be a burden, but Dave insisted I move in. Mom, we want you close. This is your family. So I gave up my apartment and moved in with them. As soon as I was able to manage household chores, I cooked, I cleaned, I picked up the grandchildren from school, I pressed their uniforms on Sunday nights, I sat with them through homework and bad dreams, and I did it all without complaint, because that is what you do for the people you love. I was not paying rent, and they did not request financial assistance. My daughter-in-law and son said the house is partially mine because I helped with the down payment. The it started with small things. I didn't know then that I was being discarded one day at a time. A comment here about how I seasoned the food. A suggestion there that maybe my room, the bright guest room at the end of the hall, might be better used as a home office for my son. Then, the children started after-school programs, and the quiet usefulness I had built my days around began to disappear. I started to feel like furniture they were deciding whether to keep. Then came the last Tuesday of November, 2 days before my birthday. Dave sat across from me at the kitchen table, that same table I had wiped down more times than I could count, and he told me it was time to make a change. We need the space, Mom. Joanne and I have been talking. We think you'd be happier somewhere more suited to your stage of life. Joanne, already packed your belongings. It's about space, Joanne had said, her voice sharp as broken glass. We're remodeling, and we need the guest room. Sometimes my mom would like to visit. You've had your time. It's her time now. I looked at the man I had carried through fevers and heartbreaks, the man whose wedding I helped pay for, the man who once called me his hero, and I said nothing. I did not argue. My heart felt like a hollow, echoing chamber. Joanne placed a brochure on the table in front of me. A senior's residence, cheerful photos, the kind of place that is designed to look like comfort but feels nothing like home. I picked up that brochure and I folded it in half and I walked to my room and I sat on the edge of the bed and I told myself what I always tell myself when something threatens to break me. You have survived harder times than this, Agatha. I did not go to the residence. I couldn't afford it. Not after $40,000 that I gave them that I'd never see again. I called the deacon from my church. Deacon Swaby, a good man. He helped me find a small room in a boarding house on the west side of the city. Clean, modest, a long walk from everything familiar. I would survive on a meager pension and the dignity I refused to abandon. I unpacked what I had brought, my Bible, a few photographs, my good coat, and I told myself this was not the end. It was just a different beginning. I started volunteering at the public library 2 blocks away, 3 afternoons a week, helping children with reading and homework. It was the thing that made the days feel purposeful again, the thing that reminded me I still had something to offer, even if my own family had forgotten it. And it was there, at a corner table in that library, that I met Anna. She was 14, sat in the same chair every afternoon with a math textbook she clearly didn't understand, and an essay she clearly didn't know how to start. I noticed her on the third day. I could tell she came from money. You learn to read those signs after a lifetime in other people's houses: the shoes, the posture, the careful way she held herself, like someone had taught her to take up just the right amount of space. But there was something else, a kind of loneliness that money cannot fix. I recognized it because I was wearing it myself. On the fourth afternoon, I sat down across from her. "You've been staring at that same page for 40 minutes," I said. "Either that's the hardest page ever written, or you need some help." She almost said no. I could see it in her face. She had been taught to be polite but distant. But then something shifted. She said yes. But she warned that her tutors could not help her understand, and she was apprehensive I may not be able to assist. We worked through the math problem together. Then another. Then I read a paragraph of her essay, and I showed her the argument she was already making, the one buried underneath all that uncertainty. She came back the next day, and the next. And that is how I became her tutor and grandmother she never had. She was eager and made great improvement. We never exchanged last names. I didn't ask about her world, and she didn't ask about mine, but we understood each other anyway, in the way that people do when they've both been through something that stripped them down to what's real. I gave her what I had always given freely: time, attention, and the belief that she was capable of more than she thought. And week by week, I watched her change. By May, Anna's grades had climbed from a C- to a B+. She placed second in a district history competition with an essay she had completely rewritten after one of our sessions. She started participating in class more, she said to me one evening. She started carrying herself differently, a little taller, a little steadier. I did not take credit for that. I want to be clear about something. I did not give Anna her intelligence. It was always there. I just sat across from her long enough that she stopped doubting it. What I didn't know was that someone else had noticed the changes in her. Anna's father came on a Thursday. She introduced us, and she said 3 words I will carry with me for the rest of my life. "Dad, this is Agatha. She's the reason." His name was Donald Jones. He was a single dad who lost his wife and parents in a car accident. I didn't know who he was at first, just a man in a plain jacket with tired eyes and a very careful way of listening. Then I realized he was my son's boss. He asked if he could take us both to dinner, no grand occasion, just a meal, and over that meal he asked me questions, real ones, not the polite kind, the kind where someone is actually waiting for your answer. He asked about my life, about Dave, about the house, about the $40,000 I gave without a contract, and the brochure that was handed back to me in exchange. "My son," I said to Donald, "thought success was a ladder. He forgot that the climb is lonely if you push everyone else off the rungs." I don't know what I expected him to say. He didn't say much at all, just listened. His jaw was tight the whole time. I could see deep sympathy in his face as he absorbed my story. When we said goodnight, he shook my hand and looked at me the way very few people have ever looked at me, like he actually saw the real Agatha. I received a phone call from my son the following day. Mom, I lost my job. We will not be able to pay our mortgage without my income. The house will go into foreclosure. Can you move back? I know you must have savings and we need the help. I did not respond. I disconnected the call and blocked his number. 4 weeks later, a letter arrived at the boarding house. I sat down at the small table by my window and I read it once. Then I read it again, and again, and again. Donald had arranged an apartment, a warm 2-bedroom unit in a building he owned 10 minutes from the library, ground floor, fully furnished, the lease in my name, paid in full. But that was not all. He had established a literacy initiative, the Agatha Johnson Reading Program, 3 public libraries across the city, after-school tutoring funded and coordinated, and at the center of it, a real position for me, a title, a salary, benefits, a full administrative team to support the work. He closed the letter with one line: "You gave my daughter her future back? It is a small thing to give you yours." I sat with that letter staring at it in disbelief, tears of joy and appreciation running down my face. I thought about my mother, who worked her whole life so I could have something better. I thought about Dave, and the table, and the brochure. I thought about Anna sitting alone in that library corner, too proud to ask for help, too broken to know she needed it. And I thought about how the Lord has a way of routing things. You think you are being discarded, and maybe you are, but you are also being redirected to a corner table, to a girl who needed what only you could give, to a season of purpose you never would have found if everything had stayed comfortable. I called the deacon who found me that boarding house room, and I told him what had happened, and we thanked God together for a while. Then I started making plans, because Agatha Johnson has never been good at sitting still. This is Elder Story Corner, where we learn that kindness is the ultimate currency, and it's never too late to start a new chapter. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been underestimated? How did you prove them wrong? Until next time, keep learning, keep loving, and keep your head high.